All right. Hello, my name is Luis Mondragon.
And I am Adam Enriquez.
And we took the red pill today.
We decided to stay in Wonderland and see how far this rabbit hole goes.
So we're going to start this video by going over what does the framing look like to align your learning outcomes for the math department and a statistics course. So the framework that we're utilizing is backwards design. So what we want to do is making sure that our departmental program learning outcomes align with the mission, vision, values, equity values, and habits of mind of the institution. And the way that we're going to do this is by making sure that all the learning outcomes align from the institutional level to the course level. Now, when we talk about following the mission, we're referring to our commitment to learning and achievement, which empowers students to enrich our communities and participate meaningfully in today's complex world. For our vision, we're making sure that we're transforming learners, transforming communities, and transforming lives. We want to make sure that our students are learning the values of the institution, such as excellence, collaboration, relationship, innovation, relevance, access, leadership, diversity, and integrity. We want to make sure that we are also following our equity values, that we're creating equity by making sure that students from all backgrounds succeed in reaching their educational goals and improving their families and communities. We also want to make sure that our institutional learning outcomes are part of the students' learning experience, that they are aware of aesthetic awareness, communication, critical thinking, etc. So how do we start with this process? Well, one of the things that we can do is we can ask, what are some good habits that we want our students to take away with them after they finish our math classes? And these are some of those skills that we want. So the next thing that we want to do is after we talk about and we think about our habits that we want students to take away, the next thing is that we want to make sure that our institutional learning outcomes are being aligned with the departmental program learning outcomes. So in this slide, we can see that the departmental learning outcomes, they're not clearly connected with the institutional learning outcomes. We can guess which ones fit and which ones don't. And this is where Adam and I had a little bit of problem trying to identify which PLO connected with which ILO. And that is why we decided to rewrite these so that they are clear and that they include the language from the institutional learning outcomes.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Enriquez, and I'm jumping into the matrix. So we've established that there's a disconnection between our ILOs to PLOs. So on the left-hand side, what we have is our old PLO, right? Synthesize ideas and apply mathematical reasoning and logic to the real world. And we needed to go ahead and make a clear connection to our ILOs. So we did this. We were able to achieve this by inserting a little more language, but also incorporating that habits of mind. So our new PLO on the right-hand side is students will be able to understand, write, and communicate mathematical information symbolically, visually, and numerically with clarity and precision. Notice the clarity and precision that directly comes from habits of mind. All right. And we carried this process throughout all of our PLOs because we were struggling on making that connection from our ILOs to PLOs. But one thing I'd like to point out is we still maintain the integrity of our old PLOs, but we just enriched it with this new language and with habits of mind. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you'll see our old PLOs. They're a bit terse. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see our new PLOs. They're a lot more robust, okay? And again, we were just able to achieve that by inserting more language and incorporating those habits of mind, okay? So in doing so, we now have that clear alignment from our ILOs to PLOs. Okay, naturally, after you go from your ILO to PLO, you want to go to your CLO. But our old CLOs were content-based. They were content-driven, right? And that's something we want to get away from. We want to move towards learning outcomes, the learning in school. Okay, what skills, values, and traits are these students learning? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go through an example. I'll show you a new CLO compared to the old CLO, and then I'll go ahead and construct this new CLO and how we're going to do this, because we're going to be doing this in a breakout. I shouldn't. Oh, dang it. We're not going to be doing breakout. I shouldn't say that. So we'll just skip this. This won't be the final one. So
No,
what I'll do, okay, yeah, so what I'll do is I'll read an old CLO. So students will choose whether to use a linear regression model or the mean of the Y values as an estimate for an X value. This is very content driven. This is a very particular part in statistics, right? And we want to move away from that. All right. So on the right, you'll see an old CLO. Again, this is based on the learning objective from the course outline of record. Okay, students will drive a conclusion about a hypothesis test between two proportions given the p-value. Again, very content driven. And so the new CLOs are moving away from that. And that's not to say that we're not going to be assessing students on course objective. That's what midterms are for. That's what exams are for. That's what quizzes are for. Okay, these CLOs are going to be based on assessing the skills, habits, values, and traits, right, that are the foundation for lifelong learning, but additionally, these transportable skills, okay, that we're imparting on our students. All right, so here's the new CLO, okay, and this new CLO aligns to the PLO, which aligns to the ILO, okay. So the statement is, students will make an inference by reasoning logically and questioning their thought process. Okay, so this is the new CLO, okay, and we're going to go through the process of constructing this CLO. All right, and then also with these new CLOs, students are going to be able to write these things on their resumes. They're going to be able, when they're in an interview, they're going to be able to say this to their future employer, right? So what did you learn at school? Students are going to be able to say, hey, I know how to make inferences, I can reason logically, and I know how to question my thought process, right? And versus where you have the very content specific, oh, well, I can come about a conclusion regarding a hypothesis test about between two proportions given the p-value. They're going to look at you like, what? What planet are you from, right? No, unless you're going to be like a stats professor, right? But we're not teaching to teach every. What did Paul say? We're not teaching to teach the next stats professor. Okay, so constructing a new CLO. How does this work? So what you're going to want to do is go to your PLO, and you're going to want to pick out a habits of mind that can serve as a sub goal or something of that nature, right? Where you're promoting these habits, values, skills, and traits. Next, what you'll do is you'll go to your course objectives, okay? And you're going to want to marry your course, the course objective with these sub goals, whichever one matches up the best, okay? And you can use your course content to help better gauge whichever one marries up better, okay? So once you have your course objective with your sub goals, you're ready to write your CLO. So for me, what I did is I went to the PLO. What does that look like when you go to the PLO and get a sub goal, right? I went to this PLO and I went to PLO 1 and I said, oh, students will be able to reflect on their own thoughts. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I said, what else do I want? It's like I'm shopping, right? And then I went to PLO number 2 and I said, oh, I want students to reason logically. I said, okay, that's good for a CLO, right? I have be able to reflect on their own thoughts and reason logically. So after I find my 2 sub goals or my sub goal for students, now I'm ready to go ahead and find out, well, which objectives do these sub goals match up with? So after going through the course objectives, I was able to settle on this objective. Analyze a problem involving hypothesis testing, apply the correct techniques, and come to a conclusion for a claim about a population proportion and mean, all this while using appropriate levels of statistical significance. Okay, so once you do this, you're ready to write the CLO. So my CLO is students will make an inference by reasoning logically and questioning their thought process. Now it's kind of like I just went from sub goals, objectives, and then there's my CLO. This process isn't that easy, okay? It is somewhat challenging at first. It's kind of like you're in a dark room trying to find the light switch that isn't where it's supposed to be at. You're walking around this room looking like a mummy, right? Because you really don't know where to go. If you feel that way when you write your CLOs, that's normal, okay? But I think with persisting, you'll come up with a CLO, okay? One thing I'd like to point out is that our new CLO is content free, okay? This allows for flexibility for our instructors, okay? So how do we impart this to our students? And the way that we're going to be doing this is through the intended learning experiences. So yeah, when I'm teaching my students how to do hypothesis testing, right? Yeah, they're going to be making inferences. They're going to be reasoning logically and questioning the thought process. But that's not the only place they're going to be doing this, right? They're going to do this at whether they go to a university. They're going to do this in the workforce. For example, my wife, she's a nurse, but she's also a marketer for a hospice company. So case managers will send her referrals, and it's her job to go ahead and review these referrals to see if they're hospice appropriate, right? Because if they're not, then you can commit fraud, right? Which is a bad thing, right? So my wife has to go through, and based on the evidence that's presented in the referral, she has to make a decision. Can I accept this patient, or does this patient need like palliative care or home health care? Right. So, and this is where it allows for the flexibility for instructors to go ahead and impart their own experiences to their students. Okay, you guys can be creative. Mine was, I used my wife. I don't know, maybe you have an own experience of yours that you'd like to share where you're utilizing these skills, habits, values, and traits for your students to go ahead and form that foundation for lifelong learning or that transportable skill.
So in summary, what we found was that there was ambiguity in the alignment between the institutional learning outcomes and the program learning outcomes. And that is why we made the PLOs less ambiguous by adding the language from the institutional learning outcomes and habits of mind. Second, we found that the course learning outcomes were content-based and not skill-based. Therefore, we changed the language by aligning the CLOs with the PLOs and with the skills and habits of mind. And also these aligned well with the course objectives. Lastly, this is an example which is meant to help beginning the conversation of aligning the departmental learning outcomes for the statistics course and for other math courses. Again, this is just an example. We hope that this has been a helpful example and that it will help you on your journey to align your learning outcomes.